I'd like to thank everyone for joining us tonight for our Ephrata Virtual Academy, and on behalf of the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission and the Ephrata Cloister Associates. Again, thank you. I see many familiar names, and for a while they are faces. So thank you for joining us again. It's been almost 2 years that we've been doing this. I was just thinking that today. Today it's Easter this Sunday, so we are going to have Michael Showalter, our museum educator, talk a little bit about German Easter traditions. We thought that was a pretty timely subject matter. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Michael. If you want, you can certainly type in the chat where you're listening from, about how many people are with you. And as always, if you have questions, please type them into the chat. Thank you. And Michael, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Pennsylvania German Easter customs. And the real source for this information comes from a wonderful book published in 1960 called Eastertide in Pennsylvania, a folk culture study. It's written by Dr. Alfred Shoemaker. And in 2000, Don Yoder, another scholar on Pennsylvania German culture, reissued the book with some new information, both at the front and the back. So those two volumes together really provide a rich amount of information of Pennsylvania German folk culture traditions surrounding the Easter holidays. And I'll say that starting back in 1960 with Dr. Shoemaker, his definition of the Pennsylvania German area sort of stretches in an arc from Lehigh County over through Berks and Lebanon County down into York County, certainly Lancaster County. And so that's the major area where he drew many of his sources, and it's where I'm pulling many of the information from this evening. I'm sure everybody has their own traditions about celebrating the holiday season in their families. And so you may have something that matches, might be very different, might be very different. And all of it's just a wonderful part of the traditions of Pennsylvania and the rich culture that we have. Of course, the Easter holiday really revolves around both the remembrance of Christ's crucifixion and the celebration of his resurrection. And this is an early Pennsylvania German print made in Allentown, probably in the 1830s or 1840s, that kind of was something that you could put up as a remembrance in your home. Of course, the Easter season starts with Shrove Tuesday, and I specifically chose this painting as a little side illustration here. It comes from the Netherlands, from the sort of golden age of the 16th and 17th century painting, and it's depicting what was called the Pancake Woman. And why the Pancake Woman? Well, pancakes are the things that most of Europe eats on Shrove Tuesday. In fact, there are all kinds of traditions surrounding pancakes, pancake flipping, pancake baking, pancake eating. And so pancakes are the thing back in the ancestral homeland of most Pennsylvania Germans. But here in Pennsylvania, we all know that this is Fastnacht Day. We have our own version of things here, Fastnachts. And as soon as you say the word, you're raising a bit of a question. What is a Fastnacht? So is it square? Is it round? Does it have a hole? Doesn't it have a hole? Is it made with raised dough, a yeast dough, which is found in Lancaster, Berks, and Lebanon counties, versus an unraised dough, which is often used in Lehigh County? And then what do you put inside? Do you put in honey? Some places do that. I grew up here in Lancaster County on molasses, but there are a few regions that look for quince jelly. And then what do you have with it? I think most people would probably say coffee, few tea drinkers out there, and there are some areas, again, that specialize in saffron tea to be eaten with your Fastnacht. Now, Fastnachts don't stop with the pastry. The idea of a Fastnacht meaning a long or a fast night, is a sort of a bit of a play on words that became a joke at times. The question was, what's the longest night of the year? Well, the Fastnacht, because it lasts all day long. That night lasts all day long. And there are some traditions surrounding the Fastnachts themselves. The first Fastnacht you make is to be fed to the chickens, and that will protect them from harm from hawks and foxes during the year. And then there's the grease that you use to make the Fastnachts in. And that's the whole idea of Shrove Tuesday, Fat Tuesday, it's sometimes called. Use up all the extras, the almost luxuries that you still got around before Lent begins. So what do you do with that grease? Well, you put it on the axles of your wagons, and that's going to be good for the harvest. And you should put the grease also on the shovel you use in the garden. It's going to help the plants grow well, going to keep the bugs out of the garden. The grease, it said, was also good to smear on cuts if you have a little cut. Not sure I quite get that one, but that's one tradition. If you don't eat a Fastnacht, you're in for bad luck. You could have boils, your chickens won't hatch, your flax won't grow. And flax, of course, is the source of linen, which is the main fabric worn in early America. You're supposed to eat lots of Fastnachts so that your cabbage will grow well and your flax will grow well. If you eat lots of cabbage, eat lots of Fastnachts. On Shrove Tuesday, you're not supposed to work, especially no sewing, or your chickens won't lay eggs and snakes will invade your house. And then, of course, I'm sure you all attended your annual Fastnacht Frolic this year, because at the Fastnacht Frolic, the height of your dancing will determine how high your flax will grow this year. Following Fastnacht Day is Ash Wednesday. And Ash Wednesday, is that idea that you're finally entering the Lenten season, the time of sacrifice and reflection. And the ash pile, that collection of all those ashes from the fireplace or from the coal stove, becomes a center of activity on that day. If you're the last one out of bed that day, you're known as the ash pile. And you're teased all day long for being the last one. At school, you can get pushed into the ash pile. And you're also supposed to take those ashes and sprinkle them on your cattle and on your chickens, and that will protect them from lice. You should also sprinkle some in the garden to keep the bugs out of your garden for the coming year. Now, that all happened in our calendar just a couple of weeks ago. We're actually at the next major day in the Easter holiday today, Maundy Thursday. Now, if you're like me, you may think this word Maundy has some meaning, but it's way lost somewhere. I'll fill you in a little bit. So Maundy is sort of a corruption of an old Latin term, mandi, which means a command or mandate. And this command remembers the command issued by Christ at the Last Supper, which was celebrated today, where he said, love one another. So love one another is the meaning of Maundy Thursday. Of course, to have good luck today, you're supposed to eat something green. I hope you all ate something green. If you didn't, you still have a few more hours to do that. Dandelion is the thing of choice, of course. It's going to be full of iron and other vitamins that are good to start off the spring season. So there's maybe a long way back reason behind this eating green things on Maundy Thursday. Some places in the Pennsylvania German, people wear green on this day. It's said that you must plant cabbage on this day so that it will grow big and strong. You're also supposed to mow your grass on Maundy Thursday, and that way the grass will remain green all year long. Plus, I hope you kept some eggs when you got your eggs out of the hen house this morning, because eggs laid on Maundy Thursday must be eaten on Easter Day, and that will provide you good health throughout the year. Of course, tomorrow is Good Friday, and this is the day, of course, we remember the crucifixion of Christ. And in 1869, the legislature of Pennsylvania made it a legal state holiday for the year. Now, there's several things you should and shouldn't do on Maundy Thursday. And here's where I have to give a little caveat to all of this. All of these traditions are coming from different regions of the Pennsylvania German culture, and they tend to sometimes contradict each other. Here's a big one for Good Friday. Some areas say you're not supposed to do any cleaning on Good Friday. It's going to bring you bad luck. Whereas other areas say, yes, you must do cleaning today, and that will keep the ants out of your house. But after you've swept up, you should burn all the sweepings you collect tomorrow, so that will keep the bugs out of your house for the rest of the year. It's said that you should plant clover on this day, on Good Friday, but it must be done before noontime so that it grows well for the year. This image from the Historical Society of the Cocalico Valley is a great image. I love this. If you look very, very closely, you'll see this woman baking is also smoking a pipe. And on Good Friday, you're not supposed to do any baking, because one of two things will happen. You'll either bake someone into the family, which means they might die, or you'll bake I'm sorry, you'll bake them in, they'll be born, or you'll bake them out. They'll die on Good Friday. So no baking. You don't want to risk it either way, getting someone in or getting someone out of the family. It's also said you're not supposed to work in the garden on Good Friday, because Jesus was put into the grave on Good Friday, and that's a bad omen. You should plant cabbage so it was good and strong on Good Friday. Eggs laid on this day, on Good Friday, bring good health. And you should harvest one that you did this morning. Keep one of those, set it aside for Sunday. That's going to preserve your health throughout the year if you eat an egg from Good Friday on Easter Sunday. Even better, take the shell of an egg laid today and fill it with some spring water and drink that water. That'll preserve your health for the rest of the day. Of course, we're reaching that time of year where things like thunderstorms show up. You don't want thunder, you don't want lightning to strike your house. So take an egg laid on Good Friday, put it under a crock in the attic. That'll preserve your house for the rest of the year from being struck by lightning. And if you don't happen to have a crock handy, or you don't have a space in the attic to put it, you could put it in a drawer somewhere, and that will protect your house from lightning as well. Now, on Good Friday, it's said that only a little bit, hardly anything of rain will happen. One legend says at least 3 drops will fall somewhere, but most legends say almost no rain on Good Friday. But and if there is any kind of wetness, it'll dry up very quickly, but the sun won't shine until after 9 o'clock in the morning. Now, here's one for you to decide what kind of weather we had this week. Some of it was not too happy. Some of it was pretty nice. One legend says that whatever the weather is for this week preceding Easter, it will be really bad the following week. So I think we're on the fence today, and we'll see what happens next week. Of course, all of this is leading up to Easter Sunday. And of course, Easter Sunday is the day to go to church, share in Holy Communion, and then come home and go out to the smokehouse and bring in the first ham of the season. Nice ham for Easter. Eat those special eggs you've saved from last Friday, because that'll help your health as well. But throughout the past couple of weeks, the children have all been taking eggs and hiding them carefully all over the farm. So today's the day, Easter Day is the day to go out and gather up all of those eggs that have been hidden and eat them all on Easter Day. The Moravian Church has its own traditions for celebrating many holidays. And one that happens on Easter morning is the trombone choir. Begins very early in the morning, marching around town, playing the trombones, proclaiming the resurrection of Christ. And the celebration usually either starts or ends in the cemetery. Usually ends in the cemetery, I think. So I've been told that occasionally there's complaints of noise early on Easter morning from the trombone choir. I don't know if that's really true. Now, the holiday isn't over because Easter happened, because there's several days after Easter that fit into this holiday, including Easter Monday. And that's the day for something they called fantasticals. Hucksters came out and set up games and provided some party, some parades, some maybe a little strong beverage. And it was a chance to go to town and show off your new best clothing. And then comes Ascension Day, 40 days after the resurrection of Christ. Again, some work legends here surrounding Ascension Day. No sewing and no sweeping on Ascension Day, because lightning will strike your house. Also, it says no sweeping because it might bring ants into your house. However, there's a reverse legend that says if you do sweeping and cleaning, you should burn all the sweepings to protect your house from ants carried outside and carry the bugs outside. The other thing you can do on Ascension Day, which is usually sort of a holiday, a day off, is go fishing. And this is one of my most favorite photographs from a young Mennonite lady who lived in the Ephrata area, Hannah Whistler, and this photo belongs to the Historical Society of Calico Valley. This is Hannah and her aunts fishing. One reason you're going to go fishing on Ascension Day is because fish are coming up out of the water, and Christ rose up to heaven on this day. It's also a good day to collect the herbs that you need for medicines for the following year, because they are also coming up out of the ground and going to bring you that healing. Pentecost then recognizes the time the Holy Spirit comes and descends on people. Now, Pentecost has a couple of different names. There's a very old name we don't use much in America anymore called Whit Sunday. You find that sometimes in Europe, England especially, but among the Pennsylvania Dutch and in other cultures, another term is used, Pinkster, or I've heard it called Pinkster in some of the colonies up in New York in the Hudson Bay or the Hudson River colonies. Pinkster is that Pennsylvania Dutch name for Pentecost. And of course, you're going to decorate on Pinkster with, Pinkster. It's also called White Sunday. And it's the day to have a lot of confirmations in church. And of course, the tradition for confirmation is all the young ladies wear nice white dresses. And even today, There's like white robes for everybody, both boys and girls, to wear at confirmation. And then there's pink Stablume, the lilacs that you're going to use to decorate everything with on Pentecost. That's kind of a quick run through some of the traditions associated with the holiday and specific days in the holiday. But there are two elements of the Easter holiday which Pennsylvania Germans introduced to America and seem to have captivated all of America today, and that is Easter bunnies and Easter eggs. The two traditions, bunnies and eggs, are very closely linked, and both have ancient origins in the Germanic areas. This happens to be one of the earliest images of an Easter rabbit up here at the top with Easter eggs. And you see the children gathering up all those hidden eggs in the garden. And you'll see this comes from 1789. So it's not that idea of bunnies and eggs together. It isn't quite as old as maybe we think sometimes. Now, this raises an important thing to discuss right off the top when we're talking about Easter. The German tradition is to have an Easter hare, a European animal we would equate with the rabbit. But American rabbits are much different. You'll find that the hares of Europe have a much sleeker body. They're a bit larger in size. They have longer ears. They tend to have sort of black markings or streaks, and they are very, very fast compared to an American rabbit. But since we don't have hares here, when the Germans got here, they adopted the rabbit. And these two images by an artist who lived sort of over in the Lehigh County, Berks County area, Johann Conrad Gilbert, drew these images probably in the first decade or so of the 19th century. The one on the left from Colonial Williamsburg has been known for many years. The one on the right, now in the Winterthur collection, was only discovered a few years ago. But you'll see the Easter rabbit is bringing the eggs. Well, of course, we know that. But the question is, where does he get the eggs? And where do you put them? Where does he put them? So a Pennsylvania German tradition is to take your winter hat, your little ski cap kind of thing, and make a little nest for him to lay the eggs in. Or you'll also find the bunny, the Easter bunny, laying his eggs in the saffron bed where you're growing saffron. Saffron is a spice that is very popular in just a very narrow band throughout the Pennsylvania German area. So that doesn't really fall too far outside of that band to find an Easter rabbit in the saffron bed. But it's another place to look for him. And where does he get him? Well, this bread reminds us. And this bread is modeled after a loaf that was made and sometimes made by bakers in the region. The Easter rabbit actually lays the Easter eggs. And of course, they come in many different colors. Now, today we have commercial dyes, and those dyes started to come along in the mid-19th century. But prior to that, there are many different natural dyes that can be used. Pinks and reds, certainly from the dye plant madder. I have some that were dyed with Osage orange, which makes a very golden color. Coffee makes a kind of a lightish tan, sort of a tan brown color. Walnut, of course, can make a deep dark brown color. And how's the most traditional way to decorate them? Well, this woman is preparing her eggs, and she's peeling off the onion skins from her onions. We'll boil the eggs with those onion skins to give it that rich brown chestnut sort of color. And then we'll take a knife or a pen or a pin and scratch the design in. Scratched eggs seem to be the most traditional way of decorating among the Pennsylvania Germans. These are three very modern eggs in my collection. I have about 3 dozen scratched eggs. I just picked out 3 smaller ones here. But scratched eggs is a long-standing tradition, and they were often given as gifts. You'll find antique ones, they're often dated, sometimes named or initialed. And here is a collection, most from the Philadelphia Museum of Art. The one in the very center, 1790, is actually from the Pennsylvania State Museum in Harrisburg. The other 4 come from the Philadelphia Museum of Art. But you see those dates ranging there, 1790, 1800, 1841, 1860s. I have one from 1879. Another form of decoration for these Easter eggs is something called binsegross, which is a kind of a reed, and you pull out the pith. That what looks like sort of layers or rings is actually the pith of the reed. It's a soft, spongy reed, and then you can wrap it around the egg as this one was decorated, cut out little pieces of fabric and glue them on. I've also seen where the fabric was cut out, and then the binsegross is used to sort of outline the designs. And this is some of the reed growing in a field. One tradition with Easter eggs in this region is something called picking eggs. It's a game. I'll take my Easter egg and you hold your Easter egg, and we're going to bump them together, and we'll see whose egg breaks. The trouble is some folks have what they call a fooler. It's a glass egg, so you're never going to crack that one. But, of course, if you crack your opponent's egg, then you get to keep that. So the idea is to gather up as many of everybody else's eggs as you can. One final tradition with Easter eggs that does go back to Germany is the Easter egg tree. Now, that idea about hanging eggs on a tree has been around for some time. But in 1950, the author and artist Catherine Milhouse published this book, The Egg Tree, a children's book about some children who go to visit their grandmother for Easter. They find some painted eggs and she puts them on a tree, and then everybody gets into the act in making painted Easter eggs. This book won the Caldecott Award in 1950. That's an award given by the American Librarian Association to recognize the best illustrated children's book of the year. And so Catherine Milhouse from Pennsylvania here created this book and really popularized that legend of an Easter egg tree. I don't see very many Easter egg trees today, and the ones I see around, for the most part, have plastic eggs hanging on them. But the real tradition, and this is an egg tree that was kept active in Germany up until about 2015, is real eggs that are blown out and decorated. This particular family in Germany, you can look them up on Google. The Kraft family tree had thousands of eggs on it. Every year they added more eggs and different themes to the eggs each year. So whether you're looking to find the Easter bunny or just your own Easter eggs, take the advice from this Easter bunny who tried to sneak in the chicken house and find some. Be careful, be safe, but have a good time. And I wish you all a happy Easter. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. That was very, very interesting and very well illustrated. We do have one thing in the chat from Donna Gerber that Johann Conrad Gilbert is her 5th great grandfather.
Wow.
So that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that with us, Donna. Okay, does anybody else have any other questions for Michael about the um, topics he covered today? Did someone have different family traditions that they would like to share with us? Terry Pierce asked, is powdered sugar on the Fashnacht acceptable?
That's a sort of a new invention. The best I could find on the traditions of Fastnachts is you just eat them with some sort of filling, whatever you choose, molasses or honey or something of that nature. But the powdered sugar, I don't think is really very traditional. I was looking at Germany, and they have some interesting traditions in Germany today on Fastnacht Day that the pictures of Fastnachts I was seeing that they were showing in those articles I was looking up was showing sort of like a sugar, a granulated sugar on the outside. The other thing that happens today in Germany is sort of, might think of it as reminiscent of Carnival down in New Orleans, where people get dressed up in very bright but very grotesque masks and have parades. And that's another feature of Shrove Tuesday in Germany today.
Interesting. Susan says the scratched eggs are beautiful. Are they raw, hard-boiled, or blown eggs?
Well, they have some, I mean, in order to get the onion skin on, you boil them. And different people approach it differently. I knew a woman who made many eggs, and she would blow out the eggs and then dye them with the onion skins. And all of her larger eggs, her goose eggs, she blew out. But the smaller chicken size eggs, she boiled and boiled them hard. When I say hard, I take her advice. I boil my little eggs about an hour or two, and then they are like solid. I had one of Emily's eggs, the woman I knew, I had one of her eggs that after several years, I could shake it and I could hear the yolk sort of bouncing around inside, rattling around. I also had one of those eggs in a glass cabinet with many of them, and it broke. And I didn't realize that until I opened the door of the glass cabinet, and the smell, that sulfur smell of the rotten eggs came out the door.
Oh, no. Let's see, we've got some comments coming in here now. Dorothy King says, I like that the things that were not supposed to be done that would bring bad luck were all female related. Women got a few days off. Smart women.
Yes.
And JM says, I recently heard that in many areas, the Pennsylvania Dutch would collect any rain that fell on Good Friday for use in baptisms. Very neat. And thanks for the presentation.
Yeah.
Laura Thomas says here, the wild version of azalea is called pinkster flower. They bloom around Pentecost.
Okay.
Great. I always learn. Oh, here's something. Are Fabergé eggs any influence from the Pennsylvania Dutch? That's an interesting comment.
I don't think so. The idea of the egg as a symbol of birth and rebirth and springtime, and the idea of birth and spring going together is really a very ancient idea. And so the idea of taking an egg as a source for art is something that goes across all cultures over many centuries. Many people are familiar with what I call the Ukrainian eggs, the ones that are done with a wax, and you draw a design on with wax, you put it in the dye, you remove that layer of wax, you put on more wax, dip it in another dye. And that kind of an egg is very specific to sort of Eastern Europe. The scratched eggs, I'm not really sure the origin of the scratched eggs. Maybe someone could help me on that. But I associate those mostly with Pennsylvania Germans more so. But then you say the Fabergé eggs, those beautifully jeweled and crafted and finally cut open and designed inside eggs created for the Russian emperors and empresses. Yeah, they're so you find eggs in all kinds of cultures.
Dorothy King is asking, would any of these traditions have been practiced at the cloister that you know?
So in Dr. Shoemaker's book, he makes reference to an egg that supposedly was made at the Ephrata Cloister that belonged to a historical society in the neighborhood, and that it was later accidentally destroyed. So I have no idea what that egg may have even looked like. And I also wonder if it was truly an 18th century egg or a 19th century design. Once the last of the celibate members died in 1813, many of the married members, many of the more worldly people came to live at the site. Other areas were rented out. So what I don't know is that egg he describes, is that something that came from one of the brothers or sisters, or did it come a little bit later? It's a bit of a mystery.
Okay. All right. So I don't see any more things in the chat, but we're trying to get some ideas for future programs. And I just quickly threw together, we know that you're all interested in cloister history and colonial Pennsylvania history, but just trying to get a feel for some of the other subjects you might be interested in. And Sue, if you're out there, would you launch that poll for me? And I'm not sure I'll be able to see it, but we have a poll up. So I just threw some things together. If one of those appeals to you, check the box. If none of those appeal to you, but you have something else, it's ask you to certainly comment on what that other is in the chat box. So yeah, Sue, I'm not seeing it, so I'm going to depend on you here to lead us through this.
Yes, there are responses coming in.
Okay, great. Great. And let me know what we've got. I don't see anything coming in the chat just yet.
Well, right now, the 18th century trades seem to be leading the way. That's getting 72% of the vote here.
Okay. Antique quilts and textiles. We have.
So 18th century trades has 13 votes. Gardening and farming comes in second with 8 votes, then nature and the natural world with 7, and other 3.
Okay, yeah, we have in the comments, Frocktor and textiles, printing. Susan likes them all. Yeah, printing, Frocktor, textiles, antique quilts, textiles. All right, Sue, you can go ahead and close the poll.
All right. Oh, wait, now another vote came in. 15 votes for 18th century trades and 9 for gardening and 8 for natural world.
Okay. And lifestyles, and here's one more about the school, more about the academy. Okay, early trolleys between towns and railroads.
Oh, that's good.
That's a good one. That's a good one, Joanne. This is great because we think of things that might interest us and hope that you're interested, but this is good to get some feedback. So we thank you very much for that. Maps is another one coming in here. All right.
Okay.
All right. Very, very good. Snow Hill, something about Snow Hill. All right. Well, we certainly enjoy seeing you here each month. We are touched that you continue to join us, even though things have started to return to normal. And we plan to continue this for the foreseeable future till we run out of speakers, I guess, huh, Michael?
Yeah, well, I'll keep looking.
Keep looking. So again, thank you all for joining us. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now.